This is Prabhas and Rana Dagabuti talking about Bahabuli.
Incredible is that the Royal Albert Hall chooses a selection of films every year to recreate with a live orchestra. This is the first time they're doing this with an Indian film. And most people would think it would be a Bollywood film, and they haven't gone for a Bollywood film. They've gone for the highest grossing Indian film of all time. It makes sense to go with Bahubali. But is that a big achievement for not just you personally, but for the Telugu film industry?
I mean, see, Bahubali itself was, yes, of course, for the Telugu industry. It kind of changed India in terms of the cinematic language that it has. And now you see so many more spectacle-based films coming. It kind of opened this floodgate to saying, here you go. And now we're on that world stage and we can do cinema that's as big as the rest of the world does.
You know,
And today we're talking about a movie about ancient India where an adventurous and daring man becomes involved in a decades-old feud between two warring peoples. This movie is written and directed by S.S. Rajamouli and stars Prabhas, Rana Dagabuti, and Aneshka Shetty, among a crap ton of other people. This is Bahabuli, beginning.
పైన దెయ్యాలు భూతాలు ఉంటాయి చిన్నపిల్లల్ని పీకు తినేస్తాయి
And this is required watching, where you watch the essential films from lists of cinematic influencers and look at them through the lens of learning about filmmaking and how to move forward. I'm your host, Trey Epps, and I'm not going to lie to you. I've recorded all of my videos for the rest of 2022, and with the release a few weeks back of my RRR review, you guys really showed up by watching it and also leaving comments, and it was kind of astounding how many of you guys love talking about Indian cinema. As something that I'm very, very new to, I appreciate your patience. I appreciate you guys liking that video and helping me figure out a few more movies to watch along the way. So consider these bonus videos, if you will, where we really deep dive into Indian cinema, hopefully spanning a wide breadth of film that you guys have going on in India, because we have, as I was doing research and looking at the videos that we have coming up, it seems to be a whole lot of really distinct voices, not only from the filmmakers and the actors and the writers, but the regional videos are also very, very different from, you know, the Hindu movies versus the Telugu movies versus the Bollywood movies versus the Tollywood movies. Like it's too much for me to consider, so I will mess up, and I'm sorry. I will mess up pronunciations, and I'm sorry. But please help me along. Make sure I'm doing it right, because you guys were overwhelmingly letting me know about like the different languages that are spoken in India. It's so many, and that only means to me that the culture, again, as if I didn't know, is so rich, and I think it's really being told in the films that are being released, and the way people are showing up around the world to watch these movies is really showing me there's a renaissance for Indian cinema. So allow me to be on this journey. Continue leaving comments if you want me to do more of these. Besides, I believe I have 4 that I'll be watching, including this. If you are liking these and you want me to continue, please subscribe, please leave comments, please like these videos, and I'll continue to do them for as long as you guys show up to watch them, because it's really, really fun for me to talk about and read comments. I try to keep up with the comments. There's so many, but I love having that conversation. Like I always say at the end of every video, required watching is 100% a film club. So thank you. Now, that's honestly why I chose Bahabuli. RRR was, getting a sequel, as I've discussed earlier, and it felt right to dig more into S.S. Rajamouli. He really seems like, I don't know a comparable Hollywood director, but he really seems like a director to watch and someone to pay attention to. And it's really fun for me to watch a movie that ends up being a sequel, and potentially has its own spin-off iterations. Anyways, um, this was really, really great to see. So this movie has so many accolades, right? Like it's a Telugu breakout, which was one of the highest costing films at the time. Of course, R topped that a few years later, and if I'm not mistaken, Kantara topped that a few months after RRR. So it's I love that all of these films are being made for under $1 million, and they have such scope and take so much time. Sometimes not a lot of time, sometimes years and years in production, which is crazy. Um, so it's really, really exciting. But this movie specifically was also included in the BBC's 100 Years of Indian Cinema, which is wild. Um, considering that America is only a couple of 100 years old, to have 100 years of Indian cinema is only telling of, again, the stories that this country has to tell. Yeah, I'm excited to jump in. Also, it won Best Feature at the National Film Awards, and it was the first Indian film to be nominated for the Saturn Awards, receiving 5 nominations, including Best Fantasy Film and Best Supporting Actress. Um, it's like I said, I knew nothing about this film when I was jumping into it. Based on all your recommendations, I didn't watch a trailer, I didn't read a description, I did nothing. So this movie was a part of the recommendations that you guys suggested, and I went right into it. I was in fact going to watch The Lunchbox because it was on my list before, but when I saw that this was on Netflix and I could just easily find it, I turned it on and got going. And after watching the very first movie, having not, I guess I kind of assumed there was a second one based on the title, but didn't not really knowing what was going to happen in the film and knowing that there was a sequel and the way it comes up and it's like, get ready for the sequel in 2017. It was so exciting. And all I wanted to do is watch part 2. And I haven't yet. And if you like this video, of course, I will go back and watch part 2. I want to watch part 2, but whether or not I talk about it on here is a completely different story. That's not me baiting. This is also just a testing ground for me to see if people are interested in this. So if you are, let me know and let's do this, because I'm really, really excited for what this movie, like the jolt of energy that this movie gave me, and what we can really talk about later on as I get more involved. But besides wanting to watch part 2, I was really, really blown away because the movie took turns that I wasn't expecting. As someone pointed out, this is a masala film, or at least for me, it very much feels like a film that has so many different aspects to it that it's hard to really put your finger on what it is. It's interesting that it was nominated for a fantasy award, and while I can understand that, I wouldn't have directly put it under I don't know. I just wouldn't have put it under fantasy, mainly because we don't have, it's either drama or comedy, right? So for it to be a fantasy movie feels right, but I would have called it like a period film more than anything else. But whatever, it doesn't matter. Um, so my initial reactions, I'll give you in a second, but I was left excited for what had just been through. Watching Baahubali go through his quest of trying to reach the top of the mountain, I was excited to see what was finally there, what we were all just been waiting for. Of course, he's this child who, his mother was killed rather violently and insanely, and was given to these um, villagers at the bottom of this really, really huge mountain. And he grows up, and all he wants to do is get to the top. Everyone else is completely fine with living in their circumstances, and he just wants to get to the top. And this mountain is absurdly high. I get, like, of course it's appealing to want to go to the top. What's at the top of this? It's kind of like Jack and the Beanstalk, right? And I think maybe that's probably a good analogy for it. It's like when he finally gets to the top, he's faced with all of these things, and it's like this epic kingdom that seems so unreal considering what he left behind. And real talk, I don't know how a plot hole that I think is really interesting is I don't know how, the villagers had this kind of hole that the mother went through, and everyone's like, cover it up, cover it up. I don't know how that little hole or tunnel led all the way up to the top. I'm sure there's logic in this, but I was like, this seems far too convenient, and it was, because at the end everyone showed up. But whatever. Also, just yeah, it's fine. I can't say I know about many of, you know, the religions that take place in India, or the history or the myths or the folklore and tales, because it seems to play such a huge part in cinema. And I think rightfully so. I think actually what makes Indian cinema so compelling is that it does lean on it quite a bit. Whether it's fictionalized or it leans very heavily on it, I personally don't know. My assumption is that there is a bit of both. Like here's like some real truth to a tale or folklore or some religious aspect that we all being India kind of have an understanding of, um, or even like a regional part have an understanding of. And here's how we're going to build on top of that with storytelling. And I think that's super interesting. Like we as in Americans certainly don't have that much of like folklore. We rest on like our history of war and violence and all of that stuff. So it's not as rich as what I'm seeing here, which is incredible to see. Um, which makes me look it up, like watching Kantara, watching Tumbad, watching even like the Lunchbox. It has me looking up what's real, what's not real, and trying to understand what this culture is, that is being expressed to me on screen, because it seems so I'm repeating myself by saying seems so rich, but it seems so nuanced, and it's not something to be understood in like 5 minutes. Like you can't just go take a college class and completely understand the nuances of India the same way you can't go to a college class and understand the nuances of any country, let alone its culture, because the history versus the culture are very different. I'm blathering on that about this movie, but um, so he gets to the top, and he evokes Shiva, and puts the statue underneath the waterfall, and it gives him all this luck to get to the top and all this stuff. And Bahubali killed the king, right? Freed his mother that he didn't really know about, but he was drawn to her, and had soldiers and villagers like at their knees. Some really mean, nasty people begging for him to, like, just not even begging, but just like coming to their knees and bowing down. And I thought that was really cool. But then I looked and it was an hour left. And I was like, what is going to happen to this movie? He's this person that they're all been waiting for. And I thought, yeah, it was a fast 3 hours. But again, an hour left, and I was confused about what was going to happen left. What was going to happen with all the time that was left? Was he meant to be this leader of this of the village now? Uh, and again, when it comes to like not really it being expected, um, we got a story that I think what the last hour takes a story from a 10, which is already outrageous, right? Outrageous, I mean, like, we have this love story going on. We have like this man who's essentially falling from mountains and surviving. We have like the love sequence that happens is incredible. I've never seen people fall in love like this. And you guys, Indian cinema really handles love stories in a way that I find really efficient, and not at and almost like really fast. But I think because of the culture, it makes so much sense, and it doesn't need to be this story that is harped on for, if it's a 2 hour movie that's harped on for like 90 minutes of it. It's like, we're in love. That's not the point of the story, but we're in love. Which I completely am all about. um but with that hour, we went from a 10 to a 20, where we're now thrust into history, where the actors are playing, their ancestors, and my mind was completely blown away. Like, what is happening? What's going on? And I feel bad for all of you who had to wait 2 years for part two to come out. But because it must have been really exciting to sit back and get ready and get your tickets and go to the theaters. I want to go to India just like around the time that these movies come out, just so I can go to a theater and see what happens, because something tells me that at the end of this movie, like, complete riots happened, because they're like, what in the world is going on? And now I have to wait 2 years to see what's left of it. And it was really, again, really incredible and really fun. And I wish I lived in a place where there was this kind of excitement in theaters, because I feel like it's really an event for for people to go to the theaters and watch these kinds of movies around the world with people who get it and who want to be there. I feel like it's such an experience. But I have a few things I like to talk about, right? And I'll start with the first thing. I don't usually watch foreign films with dubbing, because they mainly, I've said this a billion times, like I usually miss something. I'm better off reading the subtitles and getting some more of the nuance and getting some more of the context of what's being said. But there's something about the dubbing in on Bahubali on Netflix that really upsets me, because it makes all these Indian actors sound probably the whitest the whitest voices ever, right? Like these, like, making a huge generalization, is like these California accents, um over like this epic film, and it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense whatsoever, and I feel like they could have done a way better job dubbing this film. I turned it off like within 5 minutes. So I was like, it gets getting worse and worse. If you have a chance to watch the dubbing, please do, if you just want to understand what it is that I'm talking about and maybe laugh a bit, because it sounds so awful. Especially when you turn the dubbing off and you hear the actor speaking, you're like, yeah, like that makes sense. Like these are their voices, blah blah. But to hear the dubbing not only not sound like them, but just sound like really, I don't know, proper. I say white voices because that's what it sounds like, but it's really it just doesn't make sense to me. The last thing one of the other things is the virtual effects, the visual effects anyway. I shouldn't judge it because it's 2015 and this movie was made under $1 million, which is mind-boggling. But I think it's interesting to see this film's visual effects versus RRR's visual effects, because I feel like what's being pulled off here in Bahubali feels much grander than what's happening in RRR. And that's why I can notice that the visual effects are not as good as RRR. Of course, 7 years had gone by since the releases of both movies. But I will say this, for a movie that's being made with this budget, the effects that from the movies that I've seen have been incredible. Have they been the best? No, but are they getting better? Yes. Are you gonna have, like, I don't know, like people fighting with tigers? Absolutely not. Are you gonna have, $10 million budget to make it look like it was a real lion? Obviously not. But yeah, I notice the effects more, and that's not me giving it any kind of flack. I do think, though, that it's just interesting to see how it changed between these two films, RRR and Bahubali, and I'm interested to see how it's different in the second movie. That said, the entire second half of this movie with the war of, like, the ancestors, oh my gosh, it was so good, so good. And what I think is happening is there's a lot of, in terms of VFX, there's a lot of, like, crowd painting and all that stuff. So it's making a real small group look like a lot of people. I wouldn't be shocked if there were actually all of these people there. Honestly, wouldn't be shocked. But it's so seamless. It's so seamless. It feels like a completely different movie than what I just watched. I'm so excited to watch the second one. I'm gonna watch it after this, actually, because I need to know what happens. And I think I do think these actors, Prabhas and Rana, do a really, really good job of playing off of each other, and they have, like, these. I don't know. I think Rana can be a really likable guy. I haven't seen him in anything else, I don't think, but he does a really good job of being like this, like, the antagonist, right? Like he thinks Prabhas's character is the one taking things from him. So I think they do such a good job at being like these two people at odds with each other. It's such a good performance from both of these people that also is Prabhas always been known as Prabhas, or did he just lose his last name after a while? I'm interested in, like, where he started versus where he is now. Also seeing him in interviews, that guy is cool. That guy is such a cool guy. Gosh, I love it. I love Indian cinema. I really, really do. Uh, Again, I've already talked about the religion aspect of it. I learned that this was based off Mahabharata. Am I saying that right? I don't know. Anyways, and I think I'm saying two different things. I've really talked about religion, but I also learned this was based off a folklore or text or something called Mahabharata. Sorry if I'm screwing that up, guys. Um, lastly, let's talk about music because it's boasting 7 tracks on the soundtrack, and what I really, really feel like is, as a whole, India does a really good. If you told me that these soundtracks were made by one artist, let's say, called Bahabuli, and with this album coming out, it was this this movie, I would call that a visual album. And it feels very much like a visual album. It feels like the way the music is ingrained, and specifically, I think it's only ingrained properly in the movie as that the kind of like the premonition that he was getting from Anushka's character, and like them falling in love and all that stuff. Like it wasn't like that was like the only musical sequence that I can remember. Them falling in love was just the music playing over that montage, and the other bits were just music playing over the montage, and it's become such like almost like a Greek tragedy. You know how they have like the Greek choir, the Greek chorus. Um, that's what this feels like when it comes to the music of Indian cinema that I've seen so far. It really feels like the music is again telling us what's either happening right in front of us, reminding us of of what has happened, like what we have seen, or kind of warning us and telling us, like this character's losing sight, or this character has the heart of a lion, or whatever it is, and we need to get through this. And I'm really enjoying, and I probably shouldn't talk about music anymore because I feel like a lot of it's the same in terms of like the way music is used to help tell story. Um, but it's good. It really helps enhance this world because it's such an expansive world. Obviously, it needs 2 parts. Um, yeah. But listen, please, Sang, what were your thoughts when you first saw this movie? I feel like this is one of those blockbuster movies. I'm also really curious about how often these movies come about. If you're in India or have any knowledge of Indian cinema currently, I would love to know how often these movies kind of come about. Are you getting these movies every few months? Is it every year that it's like this one movie is really coming out? Um, I was reminded that NTR 30 is coming out soon, and I'm super excited for that. I'm very excited about that. But let me know what you guys think about how your understanding of how things work in with Indian cinema. Um, for some fun facts, Kliki, the language that was created for the film, was released via the website on an official language as an official language to learn. I think of it like these other made up languages, like Game of Thrones or something like that, where people get to learn these languages, and I think it's really fun. It was supposed to be like a really easy language to learn. I'm not a linguist at all. I barely speak one language, let alone anything else. I speak parts of different languages, and I said that I'm going to learn an Indian language, probably Hindu. Um, yeah, so hopefully that's a bit easier and I can get some basic phrases down. I like knowing basic things and building on there. And yeah, maybe I'll get ready to go to India and during one of these premieres of something that is coming up, and hopefully have a good time. Netflix announced a prequel series, and as of 2021, they scrapped what they had and brought together a new creative team. And I reckon after the release of Lord of the Rings, this show will come out soon enough with audiences around the world watching. I do think that people love a good epic. People love a good fantasy. Game of Thrones proves that. Lord of the Rings proves that. Like there are so many shows and movies that prove that, and I really hope that, as far as I know, as far as really is not really related to the creative team on the series, but I really, really hope that it comes out and it builds upon this world, and I really hope that people from around the world are able to see it, and it's not something that's exclusive to Netflix in India, and that it is shown around the world because I imagine it's going to be great. Um, Also, it'd be really good to see what happened beforehand. I think there's so much more of a world that's being built. That it's like there must be these really big stories of civilizations facing all of these problems, uh, all the same problems, but obviously different with different heroes and different characters and all that stuff. So really interesting. Um, listen, as far as scene stealers go, someone please give the woman an Oscar. I'm so sorry, I forget her name, but the woman that plays Bahubali's birth mother, she is acting. She's acting, and it's incredible to see the ranges that everyone has to go through. Everyone in the cast, really. After RRR, again, I learned what a masala film was, and a film with a bit of everything. And I think this is most definitely one of them. It was giving me a bit of Ben-Hur, Pocahontas, Mulan, 300. Um, it just felt like a lot of different things thrown in, and there's so many kinds of these movies that I was able to identify as I was watching them that just reminded me of everything that I know. Again, I don't think it's classified as a Bollywood film. I think one of the ones that I'm watching will be classified as Bollywood film. But again, the way the music was intertwined with this was really interesting. I'm now getting this really big library of Indian soundtracks. Listen, is there a soundtrack that I should be listening to? If not soundtrack, I'm interested in just like different types of music as well that I should be listening to. Like if you have any kind of recommendations, send a link, or don't send a link, just comment about it, and I'll look them up. I'm going in. I'm going in, guys, and I hope that you guys are there to lead the way with me. Listen, I feel like this has gone on long enough, and I apologize for the rambling. But with all of that said, whether or not this is required watching is not the point. But of course it is. For all the reasons that I just said, it's certainly something required to watch and really start to build your filmography, like your watch list of Indian filmmakers. I reckon I'll be saying that a lot, to be perfectly honest, because there's so many different types of Indian filmmakers, and they're all not the same. In fact, they're just vastly different from each other, and the stories that they're telling are so different that it's worth talking about in the context of the place that they are made and the people that are making them, which is very different from the same 3 directors and 4 writers that we tend to see over and over again. So, with that said, again, leave your comments and subscribe and give a thumbs up if you like this. If you want me to do more of these, engage with this, because it's been super fun to start this ride with Bahubali, and I will definitely continue with this Indian cinema journey watch list, if you will, including Bahubali: The Conclusion. So until next time, again, required watching is a film club, so let's chat. Let's have some conversations. Until next time, peace.